Welcome to another Light Reading Executive Spotlight Q&A. My name is Phil Harvey. I'm an editor at Light Reading. Joining me today is James Watt, VP and General Manager of Nokia's Optical Networks Division. James, thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me, Phil. Great to be here.
Yeah, and we've got a lot to talk about. We're at OFC, so the noises you hear, we're in a meeting room just to set the stage. So if you hear outside noises or chatter, that's just the buzz of the Nokia booth and people talking about all that's going on in the market, especially the Infinera acquisition and combination. I want to kind of start with that.
Sure.
I guess the most obvious thing to cover there is what the combined company now means for Nokia's overall strategy and its vision for the optical networking market, because it's such a major addition to what you're already capable of. So how did things change when you bring on Infinera?
I think the biggest single impact is scale in a bunch of dimensions. Obviously the business is larger, which has its own qualities. The set of people we have, the set of great people we have on a whole bunch of different topics, whether product, whether project execution, whether technical pre-sales, is now much bigger. And more importantly, we've got a broader portfolio to really bring a much wider set of solutions to people, not just today, but increasingly quickly as we move on. So scale, and more scale.
Okay, yeah. And scale's the operative word in the data center discussion too, because a lot of the interest in in upcoming AI applications are sort of highlighting the urgency of data center build-outs. What's the opportunity there for Nokia to help hyperscalers and enterprises speed up connections inside of data centers so they can meet these demands, for whatever these applications bring us?
So I think if we take Nokia broadly, there are a couple pieces of that answer. The first is the data center fabric itself, which is something we've been talking about for the last few quarters, where we've significantly bulked up our investment in that space, and delivering a wide range of solutions on that data center fabric, both the switches themselves, but also the automation to make that. Mm-hmm. The other side of that equation, which is really part of a discussion dominated by power, is the interconnect between that fabric.
Right.
And that's somewhere where we believe we can apply the expanded technology portfolio to be part of solving that power problem as the speeds go up.
Okay.
And so I think it's really the combination of those two for Nokia, and the part obviously the acquisition brings is the second part.
Okay. Yeah, and I mean, to kind of flesh it out a bit more too, you've got, with all of this, with the data center architecture just kind of completely changing, you've got the data center fabric, the switches, you're connecting switches together, you're also connecting data centers together. So it's like in every sense of the word, every part of that expansion, you have a product for it, you have an answer for it, or you at least have a strategy for how they get from where they are now and to where they need to go.
Yeah, and if you look at some of those pieces, data center interconnect is something we've been doing, both the classic Nokia, but also Infinera for a number of years, but increasingly so. Data center gateways as well on the IP routing side. The fabric we have been doing, but that's somewhere we ramped up our efforts, and then the interconnect. So, the data centers themselves are changing. There's a lot of evolution there, putting a lot of pressure on how you fill them up. And obviously that's not only us. There's GPUs and other things that go in, but how do you connect those things together? And then how we connect those data centers both to themselves, but also to all the other networks in the world. And that even trickles through then to how those networks evolve.
Okay. We'll talk about pluggables, coherent pluggable optics, because that's pluggable coherent optics, however you want to say it. It's a major advancement and theme in this space. Right before we get to that, though, let's talk about WDM systems, optical line systems. So what's Nokia's latest here? What's the latest offering, and then how does that fold into this data center opportunity?
Yeah, so the line system, you framed it well, because there's really two parts to the optical networking, right? The WAN part of it, if you will. One is the photonic infrastructure, which is really about being able to get the wavelengths to where you need them, and enough of them, or as many of them, depending on the topic. And then, how do you get light over them, which we'll come back to in a sec.
Right.
The line systems are under pressure in different parts. Certainly, interconnecting data centers, either interconnecting campuses, sets of them, or whatever, the push there is capacity. We've been doing L-band C+L really for the last 8 to 10 years, and now we're actually even, working beyond that. But the other pressure that the growth is bringing is the simplification of that infrastructure. So if you look at, if you look in the booth, you'll see basically a very high port count, 66 port ROADM to allow the customers to construct the topologies need in a very simple way. Given having more data centers of a certain size that are in a particular region, as well, but still getting that massive capacity. And then beyond that, we've got work to do on multi-rail to get more fibers, because we can now fill up a fiber.
Okay.
Right? So a lot of evolution there on the capacity. By the way, on the non-hyperscaler customers, a lot of evolution deep in the network to be able to get bandwidth as deep as we can, which is a completely different set, but equally important set of trade-offs.
Yeah. Yeah, it's becoming more challenging in that space, and that's what makes it also interesting. Now we can talk about one of the demonstrations that's happening at the show. I'm going to quote it right from the description. The industry's first multi-vendor interoperable multi-hall 800 gigabit pluggable coherent optics. So it sounds fast. It sounds incredibly versatile and useful. But the multi-vendor part is interesting too. So what's the context of, sort of this, or the significance of a demo like this?
Yeah, so that's actually on top of all the other great things, as you mentioned, the fact that fits in a power and physical envelope that's so dramatically smaller than when we started coherent optics is one part. The interop part is something that really hasn't been part of the optical networking lexicon forever.
Right.
Really, the line side of the optics, the coherent, whether coherent or before that, have really always been, people have been pushing hard to get the most on the bits, most bits on the wavelength, and haven't worried about doing that in a way that somebody else can do. But if you look at the volumes of that are expected, the needs of customers for secure sources of supply, thing we got a bitter reminder of a few years ago. There's been a lot of not just interest in making sure we can interoperate, not just in general, but with probabilistic constellation shaping, which is reasonably both technologically aggressive but complex technique to maximize the capacity of a wavelength. And so, the significance of this is, yes, it's interoperable, which has all the good properties, but in a very complex technical domain, which is, a testament to a reasonably large amount of work in a short period of time in the standardization setting to get something that gives great results on one hand, but can be done by a bunch of people on the other. Those two are often historically have been opposition, and they've been pulled together here. That's what that's about.
Yeah, because you've got on the client's, the customer side of that equation, they want to secure multiple suppliers. They want to know that more than one company can do this, but there has to be technical leadership somewhere to get us there. So
and it was a collective effort across a number of vendors to get both specification, but also to get implementations done in a time frame where we actually, it's being shown here. Yeah,
that's what I like the demo. I like when companies are demoing this interoperability at large. OFC, that's always been a part of OFC, the OFC net, things like that. But it's nice to see that it's coming down to this level as well. So now, the last thing I have is to talk about intra-data center connectivity. So between data centers, I guess is a better way to say it, in case my Texas accent is disturbing that. How's Nokia stepping up here, and then how does this sort of play well with the work you've always done on the service provider side, for optical networking?
Yeah. So if you look at inter-data center, in some ways it's a very similar, just not identical problem space to what we've done in the long haul for long haul forever. And we talk about long haul, and we immediately, as you know, have tortured you before with, oh, well, this is really regional, and this is
Right.
ultra long. But it's a very similar problem space in that it's a capacity game, right? There's a finite set of resources, fiber, and how do you make the most of them? I think if you look at the inter-DC space today, the difference and the evolution has been that the pressure, the need for capacity there is just ever so much more so. And as you get there, then you continue to push not only to we've got to the point where now we can fill up a fiber,
Right.
and that's really been and obviously if you think about running a fiber across Texas or maybe across the whole U.S., that's a very significant investment. If you think about other places, even just across the state, it's an investment, but maybe it's cheap. How exotic do you want your technology? Can I do another fiber?
Right.
But it's a place where you're both fiber constrained and the capacity demands are growing.
Mm-hmm.
So pressure there is on capacity. Also going back to the collection of data centers and how they're being built out is shifting due to power constraints.
Yeah.
And that starts to put pressure, as I was alluding to earlier, on how you interconnect them and the architecture and how you need to support that, and on latency and how you want to do it. So it adds some new pressures to what we've been doing. In some ways, if you think about many of these pieces, and this is true even in the service provider, the core technologies are the same. The key thing is packaging the right pieces into the right solutions for the customer. Right. And for sure, inter-data center stuff starts to look very similar to what we do, but, maybe only for the biggest customers. But if I look back, say 10 years ago, when we would have talked about C+L, we would have said, yeah, that's only for a very small set of customers that have this problem. If I look at now, I have dozens and dozens and dozens of customers for that. And so that, it's part of the capacity thing. It just happens to be at the high end. By the way, we have a lot of CSP customers who provide inter-DC connections either of their own or for end customers who are not ones who are building their own. So, the inter-DC space is also across different customer segments as well, albeit with different pressures and different choices.
Yeah, it's interesting. So if you're listening to this and you haven't kept up with the data center space much, what he was alluding to is the power constraints of major metros, is forcing hyperscalers and other data center builders to build more and more out in either rural markets or tier 2 and tier 3 cities where they can have cheaper land, more access to power, and that sort of thing. But like you said, that adds another layer to the connectivity challenge between all of these, because these things have to act as though they're one giant supercomputer in some cases. I guess if I'm fast forwarding to where AI is eventually going. And in a lot of markets, that can be a challenge. But technologically speaking, it's the companies that have been like Nokia, who've been in the long haul space and the subsea space, and this is second nature to them. They've seen this problem before, and they can arrange their solutions to kind of fix it. And it's also not just one or two companies in one or two cities. Like I think it's somewhere in the neighborhood of several hundred data centers that are coming just in the U.S. and they're not all going to be built in the most populous cities and that sort of thing. So yeah, big opportunity there, and at least a lot that still has to shake out. To put a bow on this conversation, so the big themes at the show are kind of the same as ever, but with a lot more urgency and a little more interoperability. Service providers are always looking to drive down the cost per bit in their networks, and hyperscalers and data center operators are as well. They want simplified network architectures. They want more automation, and Nokia now with the Infinera combination and its advanced product line is kind of right there at the center of all of it. Anything you want to add to that?
No, I think it's a great summary. There's an awful lot going on, as you say, an awful lot of pressure, and we've got broader portfolio, broader set of people, and are in a position to move faster, get innovation that matters into the hands of our broad customer base sooner than we ever could together alone.
James Watt, this has been enlightening, and thank you so much for taking the time out of your busy schedule at OFC. Folks, if you're listening to this for the first time and you want to hear the rest of the series, we have an Executive Spotlight series. Go to lightreading.com and check the show notes for links to all the things we talked about, from the Infinera acquisition to Nokia's product line to Nokia's homepage. We'll probably link to that as well. Thanks for listening.
Thanks, Phil.